recording now, and who with us today? My name is JB. I'm with Tennessee Farm Wine Growers Alliance. I'm also the Rocky Top Wine of Ag. And your new position, sir, what is it?
So my title is Business Development Consultant, and I work in the wine, beer, and spirits industry.
So you're focused in wine, beer, and spirits and business development. So that's a good combination. We got Greg, and pronounce your last name one more time.
Flaherty.
Flaherty. I always think there's a G in there, but Flaherty. He's with us here today too. And the grower, what do you grow?
Traminette.
Traminette grapes. So I'm glad everyone came online. We're going to keep this short and sweet as we can. We got an hour schedule, but it's not going to take that long. And I'm glad Kyle's on board. Hopefully he can answer questions that I don't have the answers to. But we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about the TAEP Application B, Producer Diversification Grant, which is a cost share grant up to 50%. And up to $15,000. And then we're going to also just briefly touch on specialty crop block grants and ag enterprise fund grants, just so everyone's aware of them. If you have a question, just stop me. I talk a lot, but I'll try to keep it brief. If you can see the screen, I'm actually going to pull up the website and we'll be able to follow through on it. And if not, I'm going to be talking through a few things, Carrie, just in case you couldn't get that pulled up.
Okay.
All right, so the application B is the one that small fruit producers and wineries and grape growers can participate in. There are multiple TAEP grant projects, but the application B is the one that's producer diversification, and those are the ones that work for us. New to this year, a lot of the portions of the grant application have been simplified and cleaned up. Also, I'd like to say an awesome thank you to Kyle and the team at TDA, because wine and winemaking are included for the first time ever in writing on these grant applications. So it looks really good, Kyle. Thank you. Let's see. All right. So looking at that, couple of things about the application. Anybody can apply who has filed a Schedule F in the previous period. So you have to be a producing and functioning farm in the producer diversification sector, which is agritourism, fruit and vegetable, honeybees, horticultural, organic, and value-added products. So value-added is where the wine comes in. Anyone can participate and get up to a 35% cost share without doing anything special, just a standard grower. In order to get the 50% cost share, you must go through additional training and certification throughout the year. It's called a master producer. And in order to be eligible, you have to register and go to certain classes throughout the year. There are a few different ones. There's producer programs and training throughout the year. They have a list of those online that you can find. Master and advanced master certification is where you find a lot of that information on the website here. And there are also places you can find the dates for that too. If anyone needs to find those later, let me know. We'll find them. I think it's under producer programs. You can also find some things as well. But back to the TAEP Ag Enhancement main page. Some things that are eligible. Cold storage is one option on site. You can do e-commerce development. If you decide you're going to do some U-pick and you want to branch out into selling some jams and jellies or other things, you can do e-commerce. Interesting enough, from a farm winery perspective, if you were to open a farm winery, you could also do your wine online if you were to get the shipping license too. So I didn't see that until just then. They do freezers, hand washing stations, loading docks, packaging equipment, processing areas. So if you need to develop an area to process the fruit, you can do that as well. Harvesters and processing equipment for vineyards. You can also get retail shelters if you wanted to set something up on your site for bringing people in. Also, website development is eligible, but advertising is not in this case. So you can develop a brand new website with this grant. And now also winemaking equipment. So for those that can see the screen, and does anyone have a question? Sorry, so far I thought I had someone coming in. So how to apply TAP online. You can set up an online account, but you can also go to how to apply. And I thought we had the ability to pull up the actual, let me see here, application materials. Here we go. Application B. So we can pull it up now. So here's what it looks like. You can see what's available. The deadline, the application period is October 1st through the 15th. It is not a difficult application to fill out. You do write a handwritten proposal for what you expect to do, including outcomes and expectations. It is a cost share program, so you do have to have funds available. You have to have your own money. So for example, if you decided you want to build a shelter on your farm for you pick and have some grapes out there, let's say it was going to cost you $20,000. You've got to have 10,000 of that yourself in order to do it, either personal cash on hand or financing from a bank or someone else. Let's see what else here. Hemp is not currently approved for that. We're seeing that on there just in case anyone online is interested in that too. Eligibility requirements. So you have to be a citizen of the US, live in Tennessee and operate a farm winery, be 18 years or older, have a working farm who has scheduled or has filed a Schedule F in previous years. Now this is really important, and JD brought it up. The individual who applies for the grant for the business is the one that also has to go through the master certification training if you want to get the 50% cost share. So for example, in JD's operation, if Carrie were to fill out the paperwork and JD wanted to go get the training, that doesn't work according to what we're reading. So if Carrie fills it out, Carrie has to go. If JD fills it out, JD has to go, and that's important. Now, Kyle, that's the way I read it. I found a line in there that said that. Is that correct?
Sorry, I was on mute. I had to take myself off. Yes, that is correct, my understanding.
Okay, good. And I'm sorry, I know you're driving, so you can put yourself back on mute, and I'll try to not ask you too many questions until you get to where you're going. We'll
No problem.
We'll hold that for the end.
I'm about to pull into a parking lot, so I'm good.
Okay, good. All right. I'm good. Well then, so that's the gist of it. Basically, you're a farm, you operate, you're 18 or older, and you filed Schedule F. That's the reason our winery properties have not and cannot apply for this cost share, because we don't file a Schedule F. We purchase all of our grapes and fruit from other farmers and vineyards. We don't grow any ourselves. Don technically has a farm, but he didn't feel his 2 acres was good enough to qualify. He didn't want to take money that would be available for others, so we don't do that. The application, let's go down here, must be filed between October 1st and the 15th. It's very important to note that receipts dated prior to October 1st are not eligible. So you can't apply for something retroactively. Now, if you apply, according to that, if you apply on the 1st and you buy something on the 3rd, it's okay as long as you get approved. So just be aware of that. Let's see what else. Labor is not a part of the eligible application process. It's only for the project itself. Applicant must utilize equipment and structures reimbursement with cost share funds for the purposes of the program for a minimum of 5 continuous years from the date of purchase. So one of the requirements is, let's say JD wanted to, you and Carrie wanted to go buy a harvester, and you wanted to cost share that. You could, but you must use that equipment on site on the farm for a minimum of 5 years continuous after the purchase date. That doesn't mean you couldn't loan it out or share it out to a different facility or different farm, but it has to be utilized at your facility for a minimum of 5 years before you either let it go or get something different. Site visits may take place. They're not frequent, but they do occasionally happen. We've applied for other grants, and we've applied for 7 other grants since I've been here, and we've only had 1 on-site visit, but they do occur, so be aware that that could happen. And if you fail to comply, you may be required to pay it back. So just make sure you follow the standards. My recommendation just to anybody is, if it's your first time doing it, apply for the standard producer of 35% cost share, get a feel for how it works, utilize it for a smaller project that you want to give it a test run on, and then later on, if you're happy with it and how it works and the reporting and everything, go for the master application. My experience personally in reporting for grants is that they're not too complicated. You just have to let them know how it's going, let them know when you ordered the equipment, if it's equipment, when it's delivered, when it's going on. Same thing with development. If you're doing a website, you know, what you're working on, timeline structure, when it's finished. Same thing with any
Are you there, guys?
Your brochures. JD,
Okay.
Hey, Jay.
I know it did, but I was wrong. The application, yeah, application B does not cover storage, but it does cover
You're,
some other things.
you're cutting out a little bit. I lost you for about 15 seconds there.
15 seconds. Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you now, but
Yes.
you were gone for a little bit.
It does have a lot of things it's eligible for. However, there are a lot of things that are not eligible as well. So I'm going to pull that up on the screen for those that can see it. Ineligible that's important to note would be advertising and things like building and storage, cash drawer reports, computers, things like that, landscaping, clearing. I mean, there's a big list of what's not eligible. But
You mentioned cold storage though. How are they defining cold storage?
So cold storage, in my mind, would be having like a chilling unit on site, either a deep freezer or even refrigeration type storage carry. It would be, for example, if you were to build something to where you harvest and then pull your grapes into that cold storage prior to delivery, that would be eligible.
Yeah, so it like a good example, like walk-in freezers, chest freezers, or refrigerated trailers.
Okay, but what about finished bottled wine storage, temperature controlled?
That is a very good question. I'm looking real quick.
According to the value added producer section, cold storage has an asterisk, but let me see what that says, if we can find
The asterisk just says include dimensions and designs with your proposal. I believe that would work. I believe that would. So I should say this really quickly too. There's an entire team of folks at TDA that do nothing but TAEP. I work with those folks, but I am not one of those folks. And so if you have the application in front of you, there is contact information all throughout on how to contact them. And so I would definitely, as you start getting into details of your project and your plan, if you have any questions, it's always best to reach out to them first. They're very helpful. They will be more than happy to answer those very specific questions. But I do think something like that would work.
Yeah, I think
And
so.
then you also,
yeah.
Okay, and then you also talked about, I guess there's the master piece and then there's the other piece. One's at 35%, I believe, and one is at 50%. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. So anybody that meets all the other requirements can apply for the 35%. Without any additional qualifications. However, to get the 50% cost share, you must go through additional training and classes throughout the year and maintain a master certification.
Okay. And is there an annual cap for each of those for the cost share up to amount? I mean, you mentioned 15. Is that
15,000? 15,000 is the maximum.
And that's across all programs, all projects.
All programs, all projects for the year, just through this particular grant application, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
So now there's discussion about changing, making adjustments to when TAP can be applied for and when, how often it can be eligible. But right now it's still on an annual basis, October 1st through the 15th each year, and the maximum is 15,000, which means your max project could be more than $30,000, but if you're wanting a true 50% share, it'd be a $30,000 project.
Yep. Okay.
Good questions. Yeah, and if there's any other questions, it's a good time to ask, because we'll go through.
The equipment that they're talking about and that you can purchase, does it have to be new or can it be used equipment? I know that was a question in the past.
I'm pretty sure it has to be new. And Kyle, do you know for sure?
I want to say it can be used, but there has to be some sort of way to.
Wait just a second.
Are you saying something?
Yeah, sorry, I'm looking through it. It does say that used equipment is not eligible, so it must be.
Gotcha.
Okay.
There might be, now, I didn't mean to cut you off, Kyle, but there may be, there's always room for adjustments. I will tell you from like Jan Kaiser and the other people in TAEP, if you've got something that's incredibly expensive, but it's lightly used and has, you know, warranties or proof of, you know, manufacture, that they might be willing to work with you, because winemaking equipment in particular and harvesting equipment is so unique. But generally speaking, it must be new.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that it is like that is because they don't want it. They're trying to protect themselves from, you know, if your brother has a piece of equipment and you guys swap it back and forth every year using TAEP money, right? Like and I know that's an extreme situation, an extreme case, but that's what they're trying to protect against.
Kyle, no one would ever do that. What are you talking about?
I know, right? I know.
JD, we're gonna have to stop now, I guess. I'm sorry.
No, that's a
I'm
good.
kidding.
I mean, and I've heard that from other, you know, like mixing wagons and things of that nature, in the fact that you have to, and I completely understand. But I just wanted to clarify that point. I think that's a good point.
One other thing I wanted to note for those that can see the screen, and give me just one second. There's oh, never mind. That was for someone else. All right. So there are two screens we looked at. We looked at the producer, the value added products section first. This next one I've got pulled up is fruit and vegetable sector. So this applies for grapes and wine. Those are the two areas you want to look at when you're considering what you can and cannot do. This one has a much larger list. It's got a bladder press for viticulture. It's got a crusher destemmer. Those are actually written in as approved. Walk-in coolers and freezers. It's got, let's see, you can even do fruit stock, for example. So I would assume that means if you wanted to purchase vines, that you could purchase up to 15, you know, vines up to a 50% cost share if you're a master, and purchase those for a replanting. So vineyard work would work. Let me see, harvest bins and lugs. I was curious if trellises are on there. So they've included trellises now for berries and vines. So if you wanted to, basically, if you wanted to add a couple of acres and wanted to get some cost share in there, you could apply for this grant to help cover additional plantings for both trellises and the vines themselves. There's also spray equipment, pest control for bird netting and other things, wildlife barriers. Signs as well. So even if you're wanting to get directional signage for your vineyard or winery, you could do that too. And I'm trying to think, there's quite a bit on here. So like I said, I'm not going to read through the whole list. Parking facility is included, lighting, loading areas, irrigation is even included too. So the list is quite extensive for those two areas, which is good to see. So now let's go. While I'm pulling up the next page that I want to find, if anyone has any questions, go ahead and throw them out.
JB, while you're doing that, if nobody has any questions, I just wanted to throw something out there. You want to make sure at the end of every section, or in every section, it kind of talks about priority will be given to blank projects. So often it's focusing on improving or increasing production. And then when you look at the value added sector that we were on earlier, I'm going to pull up exactly what it says.
Yeah, I'll pull it up for you too. On here. It says,
producers that are producing 100% of the raw food or fiber products to be used in their value-added enterprises are given priority over off-farm sourcing of raw products. So now, in this industry, it's a little more difficult to necessarily source 100%, but you just have to understand that it is a competitive process, and priority is given to those who are producing at least the majority of their inputs on the farm, if that makes sense.
yes, it does. Yeah, and that's a really good point to note too. So more input from farm chances. And I'm making a few notes here that we'll provide out, just a quick short note thing going around. And it does say that marketing projects are allowed, but are not considered as competitive. So really this grant is meant for improving or increasing production, primarily for those producing products on site. That is the primary point.
A good way to think of the entire TAEP program is how we make on-farm investments to Tennessee's producers. And that's so if you think of it from that frame of mind, it kind of helps your decision making and what you're trying to, the projects you might look to apply for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so if we're saying, so really if we're looking at it from a vineyard perspective, the best application we could provide probably would be either additional plantings with additional grapes in the ground, or a means of increasing the productivity of the existing vineyard or harvest, I would assume. Is that a good way to look at it, Kyle?
That's a good way to look at it. And with the value added sector in particular, having the winemaking equipment added in, really what we're trying to do is, excuse me, I'm sorry. We're trying to make it easier for people who have the vineyard, who say, I think I'm ready to develop my own wine using my grapes, right? That's where we really want to focus in on that new part of it, a little less on the, standalone winery who just purchases grapes needs a new bottling line, if that makes sense. We really want to focus on Tennessee's producers.
No, it does. And something I'll add to that too, just for us to all think about. So in order to do that, Kyle, the existing winery would actually have to get a full federal and state license to make the wine on site, because the Tennessee Farm license currently allows for the grapes to be sent to another facility for production, brought back, and then you can sell whatever you produced on site. Now what's interesting is a vineyard could, in essence, let's use you, Greg, for a second. You could buy a crusher destemmer, you could buy a press, and you could crush your own grapes, press them into juice, and deliver fresh pressed juice rather than grapes to the winery. And storage equipment, you could store it cold, and anytime you needed it, you send it to the winery, they produce the wine, bring it back to you, and then you could sell it on site without a federal license. So you'd only need the farm license in the state of Tennessee, which is pretty fascinating. That saves a lot of cost for the winery. So if you were to do it that way, it would make it a heck of a lot easier, as long as you worked with the winery prior to, so that they know how you want the grapes treated. Because some are going to need to be stored, some are going to need to be pressed right away, so on and so forth. That's an interesting thought there, Kyle. I'm glad you said that. Well, I'll have to contemplate that a little bit and see what we can talk to people about. Good. So let's, while we're thinking about any other questions, I want to move on to the final piece about TAEP, and that's how do you apply? So the application is pretty simple. There's the B form that you'll complete, and you'll need project cost quotes. So you'll need quotes for whatever it is you're planning on purchasing and using, and you'll need to write out a proposal. And then once you're done, you'll have to hand deliver or mail a copy directly to the Department of Ag. There's information there. You always want to keep a copy yourself too, because you'll need that, A, if you get approved for reporting purposes, but B, just so you know you got it. Now the application itself, let me walk through that real quick. So it's really simple. Agricultural operation. Please use the following to describe your operation. You put your farm business name down. You describe what you're currently offering for services and products or operations. Then you need to include what facilities or structures you currently have. You need to provide approximate sales income generated from the operation for the past 3 years, and that would come from Schedule F. And then, is your operation involved with any other agricultural products? If you do multiple things, that probably would benefit you if you're doing diversification there. For a marketing plan, you need to also provide how do you promote your operation and where are your products or services being sold at currently. And then you're going to list out your proposed projects. And they don't have to be long. I want to keep that simple. I mean, Kyle, some of the best applications are probably, what, a couple of paragraphs at most, 2 to 3 paragraphs, pretty focused.
Yeah, you want it to be short, sweet, to the point, and focused. But one thing that we do see is you want it to have enough information. These are competitive, and you want it to be able to, like one sentence will not cut it, right? But a couple paragraphs is probably more than enough to give a good explanation.
So to give you guys an idea where we have been successful with grants in the past, I've found that really no more than 2 to 3 paragraphs is good. So I'm talking, 3 to 5 sentences per paragraph. First paragraph, you tell them what it is you do, what you're planning on doing. Second one, tell them how it will benefit your farm. And then the third one is results and expectations. So a good example would be, let's say you get cold storage carry for your bottles, right, for your wine, and you say, all right,
Yes.
so currently on Sully Notch Vineyards, we don't have any cold storage for our wine product, for our finished products that are being brought back from our fruit, 100%, to be sold on site. Right now, they're being stored in, let's say, a barn that's covered, but it's not chilled, so the temperature gets up. We're planning on purchasing a cold storage unit that's 12 by 12. And that 12 by 12 unit will store this many cases of our product in at a temperature controlled at 60 degrees. And what that will do is prevent loss and heat damage on the products, resulting in a, whatever it is, 80% increase in retention of the products, so there's no damage, which will increase your farm income by this much because you won't be losing that product due to heat or other damage. That's kind of how you want to detail these out. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, that makes sense. And explaining how, I mean, we have some storage now, but it's limited, and in order to increase sales, our sales are increasing. In order to increase them further, we need more storage. So I would just explain it that way. Yeah.
No, that's perfect.
Exactly. And a really good way to look at it is if storage is your constraining factor, right? Like we can't grow anymore because we don't have storage space to store what we produce. If we had the storage space, it's going to allow us to produce more, to grow more, to plant more acres, whatever it may be. Being able to explain, I think that it's really important to explain how the project is going to have an impact on your operation rather than just saying, well, we need cold storage, right?
Correct. Exactly. Because if your sales are growing at 30%, but you don't have the storage for it, being able to say this will allow us to continue to grow, right there is all you need. I mean, that's enough information. If you can give some estimates, it helps. And I hate to say this, don't be over exaggerant in your expectations. It's a lot better to be realistic, because when it comes to reporting, if you're expecting 10%, don't say 50. But if you're expecting, 20, say 20 or say 15. Be realistic about what your end result goals are. Let's see. Anything else in here? Budget and quotes will be used to determine any allocation amount for the proposed project. So you need to provide a detailed line item budget for each proposed project, and additional documentation can be required, including cost. So what I've got pulled up online is just showing what the proposed budget looks like. It's a really simple Excel looking thing. So you put what sector you're in, the item description, the source of the quotes, how much you're getting, and the total cost. And then your percentage for how much you're hoping to get back. Now, according to what I'm looking at here, Kyle, tell me if I'm wrong, but one application, can you have multiple projects on one application?
I think so, yes. Especially if it's all in application B. So if you're doing the fruit and vegetable and value added, then it would be all the application B. And then, there are some operations I'm sure that probably use other TAEP applications as well.
Okay, now, and the way I would read that, though, it would still be a maximum of 15,000, but let's use Sully Notch one more time. Let's say they wanted to do cold storage, and they also wanted to get some processing equipment to crush the grapes. Both of those would be on one application. It just couldn't exceed $15,000.
That is my understanding.
Okay, mine too. Great, that's good. See, a lot of these things, but I had no idea, so that's good.
Kyle,
Okay.
could you explain a little bit about the training for the master category, and is it quarterly training, and can it be remote, or do you have to be on site somewhere? How does that work?
Kyle, do you want to take a stab? Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say it's in the application. It's on page 22 of the application. It talks about the special requirements for the 50%. So you have to attend the PIC Tennessee conference. Well, depending on what it is, right? Depending on what it is, there's a PIC Tennessee conference in some of it, but then there's different courses you must attend. So like for value added, you have to attend 2 eligible events, and then there's actually a really good list of those events on page 23 of the application.
Okay, very good. With dates included, actually.
With dates included.
Fantastic. That's
Good,
very good.
thank you.
Yeah, I would assume.
Now, I will say, I do want to point out that you must have met these requirements prior to the program reimbursement request deadline of August 1st, 2020. So you have to get it in by August 1st, 2020.
So let me ask a question there, Kyle. So you're saying if someone were to apply, let's say this week, and they had not met the eligibility requirements previously, as long as they met them by the deadline of August 20th, they could apply this year for the 50%.
You know, I'm not 100% sure, but I actually don't think so. There's a line here that says the applicant must have participated in educational programs or recertification from 2016 to 2020. So I think you have to have that the designations first.
Okay,
that's
okay.
But we probably need to verify that.
I was going to say, no, we'll verify that, Kyle, because that's what I always thought. But remember, I don't know if you guys changed it recently or not. And but the way it reads, it just says that you can apply for it. You just have to complete it by August 1st, 2020. So like it kind of makes you think that you could apply for the 50% and get it so long as you meet the requirements by the end of the program deadline of 2020. So we'll follow up on that. We'll ask the TAEP group. So I'm just going to put before or after for the 50% master. Hey, other than Jan Kaiser, who else is in that department?
There's Jan Kaiser, Erica. Well, their last names are escaping me. Erica and Rachel also work with those value-added and producer diversification type stuff. Erica Bruce and Rachel's last name is escaping me right now.
That's okay. Rachel, you met her, yeah.
Yeah, Jan is the kind of the point person for TAEP, but she's got those two, and then there's a few others that work in the livestock sector.
Okay, and they've got references down at the bottom for anyone you need to reach out to. There's even 3 phone numbers for the TAEP producer diversification line, so you can call that too. This application was emailed out to everyone. I'm going to email it again. And then the last thing we need to look at, so there's the special requirements for 50%, the meetings pulled up on screen, easier to see if we printed it out. And then finally, there's an application already allowed for in the application packet itself. So it's not like you have to come up and create your own. You can actually utilize the one that's already present. You just have to include that additional couple of paragraphs to cover some things, to let them know what you're planning on doing. But I mean, for the cost share portion and the eligibility, there's quite a bit of funds available. And I have heard of people not getting approved, but I'm just going to say it's pretty infrequent. If you put together a pretty good application, and it will result in an increase in production or improving farm income or anything like that, you really got a good shot at it. So it's important to know. That's about it that I can think of for the TAEP program. You've got 2 weeks to apply for it. I'm glad we're doing this today because this is a good rough end. I'll be smoother at it next time. But does anyone have any further questions about TAEP for Kyle while we got him on? And we're going to cover the other 2 real quick.
Schedule F, does it have to be in what you're applying for?
So the question, Kyle, here from Greg was the Schedule F. Does that Schedule F have to be in the category of which you're applying for?
It's a really good question. I don't think so. I think as long as you have a Schedule F, that's all that really matters.
Okay, that's what I'd heard too. So yeah.
And we won't, you don't have to present anything that has a Schedule F, but they do audit these at random. So, you don't want anybody to apply that doesn't have a Schedule F, and then we come back and find that, we got to take the money back.
So to be clear, you don't actually have to submit your Schedule Fs. You just have to file them. And that way, if you ever are audited, you can provide them as proof.
Yes.
Because I filed a Schedule F as an apiary.
Oh, okay.
But now I'm going to file, apiary plus next year I'll do it as a grape producer.
As a grape producer. Yeah, so Greg's changing how he files from an apiary to a grape producer. But I agree with you, Kyle. I've always heard it does not matter. As long as you file a Schedule F, you're good. So, okay, fantastic. Well, good. Anything else on TAP, Carrie or JD?
Yes, I just want to give everybody a heads up. there's hard copies of these in most of your co-ops. They got them everywhere. So I appreciate you sending them out via email. Yeah.
Yeah, co-ops, extension offices. You can always call, and if you'd rather just have them, they can mail you one real quick. So yeah, they should be easy to find all across the state.
Great. Next year, Kyle, if I can remember, and you guys can have them online, if I can get 10 to 15 of them, I'll hand them to every grower that comes into us next year.
Yeah. Well, just let us know. We print a whole lot of them.
I figured you did. Cool. Good. All right. Well, good. Carrie, anything else from you?
No, thank you, Kyle, for helping us understand the program.
Absolutely. I'm doing my best. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm getting there. I've only been with the department for about a year, so this is really kind of my first full TAEP season going through it, and definitely in my role now. So I'm learning with you, but I'm doing my best to help you.
You sound like an expert, so that's what matters. All right, so hey, we're going to cover two quick things in the last 5 to 10 minutes, very briefly. I just want people to be aware of them. So there are two other grants available, at least. There might actually be a few more, but hold on a second. TDA. Let me see if I can find this thing real quick. All right. So go ahead, Kyle.
I was just going to say, should be just the two.
Oh yeah, just the two. Well, yeah, because there's the other TAP is for for the for the groups like TFWA and the
Yes. Yes.
Okay, we've applied for that in the past too. All right, so there are only two others. Thank you, Kyle. The Agricultural Enterprise Fund is the first one we're going to talk about. This is pretty new to me, but this is the one where Kyle and I first connected when we sent in our application earlier this year for a cross-flow filtration system. But so this one is a bigger grant pool. There's more funding available, and it's up to 25%. So doesn't mean it has to always be 25%. They can approve for less. Even if, Kyle, if you apply, that's a question someone asked me the other day. If you apply for 25%, does TDA ever look at it and say, well, you know, it's a good application, but we can't cover 25%, we'll cover 15?
Yes. So, yeah, it is possible that you apply for 25%, and actually it's pretty frequent. The applicants apply for 25% of their total project, and we come back with a different number.
And that's
they're awarded.
That's because, you know, depending upon the number of applicants, this is also competitive, and so you want to share the funds out as
it is very competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ag Enterprise Fund is actually the program I'm most familiar with. If you just want me to run with it for a minute, I don't mind at all.
No, take it and go.
So the Ag Enterprise Fund grant, the biggest difference where a lot of people get confused is the TAEP is for on-farm investments. TAEP is how we fund farms. Ag Enterprise Fund, we want to fund businesses, not necessarily individual farms. Now, when I say that, it can be people who have farming operations. It's, you know, you're not ruled out, but the money there is designed to invest in businesses that are having an impact on the local economy. So I'll use Mountain Valley Vineyards as an example. They were able to apply for funds and were awarded for that cross-flow filtration system. It made their production a whole lot easier and is going to allow them to purchase more grapes from their network of producers, right? So we invest in one business, and through that investment, we're having a positive impact on multiple people. That's a really big thing that a lot of people kind of get caught up on, is they see Ag Enterprise Fund and they say, well, you know what, I need money, I'm going to apply for that grant. If it is a project that is only going to positively impact your operation, that's fantastic, but that's not the background behind the Ag Enterprise Fund. So, you know, if you're looking at the Ag Enterprise Fund program, just kind of keep that in mind. It is different from TAEP that we review those applications quarterly. We actually have a review coming up in October. It's really kind of interesting. There is less money available in AEF as far as total pool of money, but there is more money available. So the largest amount we've ever awarded is about $100,000, and that about a big award in AEF we will ever give.
That's interesting.
There's no hard cap on it, but $100,000 is just because we're trying to spread the wealth. And we've invested in multi-million-dollar projects, but our impact is only $100,000, if that makes sense. So we review those applications quarterly. Like I said, next one's coming up. The application is all online. It's an online application. It's very simple. It's kind of narrative based. You tell us about your business, tell us about the project, and tell us about the impact this project will have on the local economy, whether it's job creation or helping local producers or both. Ideally it's both. On that application, we ask for proof of financing. Again, it's a cost share. So you have to be able to put the money, spend the money up front and then get reimbursed later. So we have to know you can complete the project. So proof of financing is very important. And then a business plan. And the business plan lets us know that you have thought it through. You have kind of a plan in mind and you have expectations in mind. With that application, because it's different from TAEP. We do a vetting process that will include somebody from our team coming out to your operation, visiting with you, learning about the operation, learning about the project and the impact it's going to have. So that's kind of different from TAEP in that we will absolutely come to your operation. And that's relatively new. If you remember, JB, when you guys first applied, we didn't come visit you till after. Now we're visiting on the front end.
Oh, that's good. No, I didn't know that. And I've got the form pulled up on the screen for those that can see it. So
yeah. So that's the biggest thing I want to make sure everybody understands is that Ag Enterprise Fund is not for on-farm investments. Now, some examples of projects we've used in the past, Mountain Valley with their cross-flow filtration system was one because it's going to allow them to buy more. We've done a lot in the timber industry. The wood industry in Tennessee is really big. We've done some capital expenditures for like sawmills and different places like that. That's going to allow them to purchase more wood from area landowners. Let's see. We've done about 40 projects in 2 years. So there's a lot of different things out there. So hopefully that kind of gives you guys a good overview of it. Do you have any questions? I know that was a really rough run through, but.
Carrie or JD, either one of you guys got any questions about Ag Enterprise Fund?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I guess if we were to process other people's fruit on our farm, juice it on our farm or at our location, then that would apply, I suppose.
Yes. So let's say you needed to buy more tank storage, or you needed to build a whole new building and add tank storage because you're going to process for other people in the area, then that would be an applicable project because we can see that you're going to have a positive impact on those producers in the area.
Mm-hmm.
A good example of a missed opportunity. Don't tell them I said this, either one of you, any of you listening on, but Randy with Fox Creek, he purchased a harvester and he utilizes that harvester from multiple vineyards across the area. So that harvester could have been eligible for this application. Doesn't mean it would have been approved, but he operates it for at least 4 or 5 vineyards. And so that would have been a good consideration for this grant.
That's a really good example of an AEF project. Yeah, that would have been strongly considered.
Yeah, I hate he missed it. I didn't know about it until after he purchased it. But that's a good point. Go Carrie. If you guys wanted to process 5 other muscadine vineyards at your facility and store it, like if you ever get to where you're storing it in juice or whatever else, and you were to do that for other places, any purchases to further that cause could be eligible for that application. So. Good point. And I will say from my experience, we did receive the one for the crossflow. By the way, Kyle, the crossflow's kicking it. So it's going great.
Awesome.
Man, I'll tell you what, it saved us being able to open up some tanks for harvest. So that was really, really useful. But anyway, the application is not too overly complicated. It is narrative. And the financing points, the part that always stops me, because I'm like, I always forget about it if you're going to apply. But anyway, it's not too difficult. It's all online. I've only filed 2. The The form, by the way, Kyle, has never glitched on me. I want you to know I've never had to repeat my work, so it better keep doing that because that's brilliant. I still save it in a Word document first and then copy and paste it because it's the only way I've found to ensure I don't lose anything. But the form's great. Tell them not to touch it.
Okay, I'll tell. I'll pass that
Don't
along.
touch it. Don't touch it. It's working beautifully. All right, good. And then last, any questions about Ag Enterprise Fund? All right. Specialty crop block grant. Kyle, I'm pretty familiar with this one. Do you want to take it as well? Are you pretty familiar with it?
I am pretty familiar with that. I'll start and you can fill in what I've left off.
Sure.
Especially crop block grants are there are opportunities if you're going to be doing especially some sort of research to help with specialty crops. So specialty crops are basically anything that aren't your corn, wheat, soybeans, major crop type things. But if you're let's say you're going to do a project on your farm and you're willing to work with UT Extension or you're willing to work with TFWA or different groups like that, and you're willing to share what you've learned, then that is kind of the gist behind Specialty Crop Block Grant. It's the sharing, it's the creating new knowledge and willingness to share it.
That's exactly right. And so I'll give you guys a couple of examples of grants that are distinctly different. So for Pick Tennessee Products, for example, and for TFWA, TFWA has applied for and received 2 grants to help further the goal of getting long-term leadership who it's not volunteer for the organization. So that's how we've been able to kick off and start off with an executive director. But the funds have also been utilized for additional training and experience for both the members that we have as well as the executive director themselves. It does not just cover salaries for that. It covers quite a few other things: travel expenses, equipment, presentation materials, and whatnot. So that's one type of grant I know that's been approved. A second one, I wish Rick Riddle was on here with us, but a second one that we applied for a long time ago, 2011, 2012 with Mountain Valley Vineyards, was a marketing project. Now those are less likely to get approved now, but back then Facebook was still kind of new. And we utilized it to do a massive campaign for marketing for the Rocky Top Wine Trail, which represented about 50 growers at the time and 5 winery locations. It went really well. We increased from 30,000 participants or 35,000 participants on the trail to 70,000 participants in 2 years. So if you can show results like that, marketing or expectations of results at minimum, the marketing ones are still considered pretty good, but it's a little more challenging. And they're looking for, like Kyle said, information exchange, education, research, development, more so than anything.
Mm-hmm. And Debbie Ball is the queen of Specialty Crop Block Grant, and she's my colleague at the Department of Ag. So if you have an idea, her email is debbie.ball, B-A-L-L, @tn.gov, and she'd be more than happy to answer any questions. So if you're sitting there thinking, okay, what could we possibly do? For sure, reach out to her, and she's more than happy to help on the front end before you go through the process of trying to apply.
It is a little bit more of an extensive process. I will argue that the Specialty Crop Block Grant, they've limited the wording, which is helpful. However, it's, in my opinion, the Specialty Crop Block Grant is the most extensive application that you can do.
Yes. Well, and a lot of that has to deal with, Specialty Crop Block Grant is USDA money that is administered through the states. So we have the state committee reviews applications and then selects the ones that they think are good candidates, takes it to USDA, and USDA can still come back and tell us no on certain projects. So it's USDA money that adds to the complication of things.
Exactly. Yeah. So the other 2 are only funded directly through the Department of Ag and Tennessee's Tennessee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. So that's good to know. And the reporting requirements for the Specialty Crop Block Grant is a lot more extensive too. There's quarterly reports, annual reports, and they do go through on what you list as your expected outcomes. They're gonna make you really pay attention to that. So,
Mm-hmm.
so
Anytime
really
you get
too.
the federal, anytime you get the federal level involved, it's going to be significantly more complicated.
Yep. The last grant that I'll mention that was applied for specialty crop block grant was Rick Riddle applied for one to help support the creation of an American viticultural area in AVA in the Nine Lakes region, and was approved for that. That application's been done, it's been sent in, and we're hoping to hear back in the next year and a half. It takes like 3 to 5 years to get an AVA approved, but that was considered and approved. I don't know the extent of that grant. He probably had other things in there, but that's just an example. You know, if a vineyard out in West Tennessee wanted to get together with the rest of the vineyards and create an AVA out there, that's an option for specialty crop block funding. So good. All right, well, last thing, let's cover contacts. Kyle, before I say anything, are you still the primary contact for the Ag Enterprise Fund?
I am for now, yes. We're going through transitions in our office and things happen, but for now I will be the main point of contact, mostly through the month of October. Then I'm going to hand it off to a colleague who will only manage the Ag Enterprise Fund while I continue my work in the wine, beer, and spirits industry. But for now, I'm the main point of contact.
All right, very good. So for right now, Kyle will be the contact for the Ag Enterprise Fund grant. If you're interested in that, you can reach out to him later, and I'll include his email and office phone in the follow-up email. Specialty crop block grant is Debbie Ball, B-A-L-L, just like my last name, and no, we're not related. Everyone asks, we're not. And then the last one's the TAEP training. Jan Kaiser would be my recommendation for your primary contact, but there are 2 others. There's Erica and Rachel, but Jan Kaiser is the primary contact there. So remember, you got 2 weeks to fill out and apply for this application. I'm actually willing and offering to help anyone that wants to apply put together the application this year. So if anyone's interested, they've got to meet me in person to do it, and I'm in Pigeon Forge. But if they'll come here and they want to work on it, I'll be happy to help them.
And we'll be happy to help as well. I'm based in Knoxville, so I'm close to everyone. And then we have a public affairs rep who covers all of East Tennessee, based in Cookeville. And so we've got East Tennessee pretty well covered, and always happy to help.
Fantastic. Kyle, seriously, thank you very much for coming online. You helped a whole lot. I would have been stumbling.
Absolutely. Happy to do it.
For a minute, but that was fantastic. We'll have another phone call tomorrow, same time, 8 to 9. We had 5 people on today. Hopefully the other, I think we had about 7 or 8 more said they were interested, and most of them said Tuesday. So let's hope they come online too. But all right, cool. Thank you guys all very, very much for coming in. Any other questions?
Thanks, JB.
No problem. Thanks, Kyle. All right, JD, you got that recorded. If you'll
thank you guys.
Throw that to Adam. Yep. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Perfect.